Well, we finally made it past the Nintendo era and into the PlayStation games. I didn't grow up with any of these games, as I never owned an original PS1, so everything from this point forward is new territory for me. Mega Man X4 was released in 1997 on the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn. There's practically no difference between the two, except I think the compression is worse on the Saturn, so there's more pixelation, but the Saturn does exclusively have a sweet-ass heat shimmer effect. So, if the distortion you see from a hot surface as light refracts between the hot and cool air above it, creating a blurry haze, is your jam, then the Saturn version is for you. Talking about that heat shimmer...
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
Don't get too comfortable. This is a dangerous situation.
I thought the car was supposed to move us. Wouldn't that be nice?
Can it? Ready, steady, ready, steady, ready, steady.
Mega Man, can you hear me?
This is Snake. Kept you waiting, huh? Are you familiar with Big Chunk?
So long, Bowser!
A scattered dream is like a far-off memory.
Gotta give it my all. Hope you're ready. We can't save the world from a CD player.
Originally, the Mega Man team had no plans to make a sequel past 3. I mean, Dr. Doppler injecting an antivirus directly into the virus form of Sigma seems pretty conclusive, right? But the higher-ups at Capcom wanted to see what they could do with an X game on upgraded hardware, and thus, X4 was kicked into production. The development team ran into a few issues, like squeezing all the assets onto one disc. This was especially a problem in regards to the stages being too big, so the solution was to cut each stage in half, so they all have a Part 1 and a Part 2. It also took Capcom a long time to get the game approved for North American localization. Apparently Sony had some strict rules about 2D games on their fancy new PS1, and at the time, anything less than 3D was considered outdated. Of course, they'd eventually abandoned their weird art-style gatekeeping policy, but nevertheless, Capcom really had to convince Sony that 2D games could still be relevant. I mean, come on guys, it may still be 2D, but it's no longer 16 bits, it's 32 bits now. That's twice as many bits! X4 begins with a terrorist attack on the floating city of Sky Lagoon. Someone hijacked the city's floating technology, I guess, and it's on course to crash into the ground. At the scene of the crime is a maverick hunter called Magma Dragoon, who is like, "Oh, I'm just checking things out. Well, gotta go. Nothing suspicious about me being here. Bye." Right after he leaves, Sky Lagoon crashes, leading to countless deaths.
I threw it on the ground!
If you're playing as Zero, he'll search the ruins for Iris, who I guess is his girlfriend, but it's not really explained. They're approached by the Colonel of the Repliforce army, creatively named Colonel. Repliforce is a group of Reploids and Maverick Hunters that want to build an independent nation separate from humans. X and Zero demand that the Colonel come in for questioning, but he refuses out of pride. This causes the Maverick Hunters to lay blame for the Sky Lagoon attack on the Repliforce, which is quite an assumption on their part, but okay. One thing I thought was hilarious is that in the instruction manual for X4, Colonel is described as treating his troops the same way he treats his sister, with respect. But then literally the first time we see him in the game, he abandons his injured sister so he could go argue with Zero some more. I want to also point out the fact that the hundreds of thousands of people that were killed in the prologue is a plot point that has very little emotional weight to it. Sure, it kicks off the events of the story, but because we never see a single human being in the game, it's hard to take that tragedy seriously. X4 would begin the lineage of the X series dealing with some really grim and heavy topics, like, for example, the end of the world, but none of it even seems to matter at all because we never see or hear from any random humans in the series, not even once.
Not once!
I mean, what is X fighting for? To save humanity? The only human that ever appears, to my knowledge, is Dr. Kane in X2 and X3, and he's the reason all this is happening to begin with, so I don't really care if he dies. I guess my point of all this is that when Sky Lagoon crashes, we're told that thousands died, but really it feels more like, no, it didn't. The place was deserted before and after. Knowing that they'll be considered enemies anyways, the Repliforce decides to make the first move and declare their independence from humanity. This kicks off the Repliforce Uprising and the player fighting the 8 bosses. All things considered, I do really like the new boss designs. We're finally straying away from freaking Bugtown and steering back towards cool mavericks again, like Slash Beast, or Magma Dragoon, or Split Mushroom. Okay, they can't all be winners. Split Mushroom just sounds like a soup you'd eat in the fall. It's making me hungry. The loading screens for the bosses are my favorite so far too. They have these full sentence descriptions to hype up the boss, but it's simultaneously too much information and too little information. He occupies the laboratory and will attack whoever visits there. He destroyed the city and escaped to the sea. I love how these intros just read like some rage bait YouTube headline. He lives in cyberspace and wants to destroy the network system, but he got caught. The bread and butter of these X games are the stages themselves, and I gotta say, these are my favorite since the first game. There's a lot of fun and creativity here. I especially liked Web Spider's stage. I love a good jump from log to log on a waterfall challenge. This entire level has you riding a jet ski. It's not well executed, but at least they took a swing, you know? And how about this platform section on Split Mushroom stage where these robotic plant dicks burst out of the wall? That's different. The updated PS1 graphics and art style look great, and allow for a lot more depth and detail in the background. Seeing Chill Penguin and Blizzard Buffalo frozen in Walrus as stage is a nice touch. Apparently in the manga series, Walrus just straight up murders Buffalo. He sure seems a lot more ruthless for what it turns out is a complete joke of a boss fight. I also want to praise the soundtrack while I'm on a positivity bender. I think this entry has easily the best OST behind the first game. The PS1's advanced sound chip allowed for richer tunes than the SNES could produce, and X4 takes full advantage of it with these freaking bangers. Of course, the biggest change in X4 besides the complete graphical overhaul is that now you can choose to play the entire game as X or Zero. X plays as he always has, but Zero is completely different. Rather than acquiring the boss's weapons in each stage, Zero will just get an extra move that increases his general playability, like being able to do an air dash or an uppercut, that sort of thing. Zero definitely plays different than X, and it can take some getting used to, but his gameplay ends up being just as satisfying, if not more so. A lot of Zero's moves are inspired by Street Fighter, and that was the developer's way of differentiating Zero and X's gameplay in a way that would placate the higher-ups at Capcom. Hey, you guys like Street Fighter, right? Of course you do. Sign off on all these changes, please. This may seem silly, but I could tell you working for employers before that would flip out if you changed a font. This is absolutely the kind of dumb shit you need to do to get things approved. There's also some small story differences. As Zero, you'll fight Iris, and as X, you'll fight Double, a rookie Maverick Hunter ally who ends up being a double agent. Who would have guessed? I think the name is also supposed to be a fat-shaming joke, but who knows. In the instruction manual, it specifically says that Dr. Kane created Double, which makes this like the 100th time one individual was responsible for creating a weapon of mass destruction. Can we please defund Kane Labs and arrest this man already? The special weapons / moves you'll be getting moving forward is doubled as a playable Zero becomes a staple for the remainder of the series. For X, he'll get the Frost Tower, the Ground Hunter, the Twin Slasher, the Lightning Web, the Soul Body, the Aiming Laser, the Double Cyclone, and the Rising Fire. While a lot of these weapons are kinda predictable, I will give props to the Soul Body for creativity. This weapon creates a clone of X that follows him around and damages enemies.
I love finding a good set of twins.
Zero works a little different. He doesn't get weapons from the Maverick bosses, but instead gets new moves he could perform with his Z-Saber. Strangely, his moves retain their Japanese names, but I'm not going to embarrass myself to try to pronounce them, so I'll just list them on the screen. But they include the Ice Stab, the Thunder God Attack, the Sky Waltz, the Flying Jump, the Hurricane Fang, the Dragon Flame Blade, the Sky Command, and the Fallen Phoenix Crush. With the exception of the last one, none of these moves consume any energy, and rather act as an evolution of Zero's moveset. I always really liked this idea, and feel like this is how Mega Man's secondary weapons should have always behaved, but that's just me. X's ultimate armor looks pretty sick, and ended up being a fan favorite. The developers famously had a real difficult time designing the armor and getting it just right. Zero doesn't get any armor upgrades, and it seems likely that it's because too much time was spent on X's armor and the team just ran out of time. Inafune was also pretty possessive of his designs for Zero, and it could just be that he didn't want his look to change. I think either reason is plausible, but either way, sorry Zero, no sick-ass armor for you. If you're playing as Zero, you'll eventually fight and kill Colonel. This will enrage Iris, and she'll fight to avenge her brother. Her ultimate form is like this bat mech for some reason. Zero has no choice but to kill her, and there's a whole scene where he's mourning her. This is a pretty good example of how rushed the storytelling is in X4. We barely got introduced to her at the beginning of the game, and it absolutely does not go into detail at all about her and Zero's relationship. Were they dating? Were they robo-f***ing? They obviously had something together, but the game doesn't bother to explain it at all. It's funny that a game with FMV cutscenes somehow tells a less cohesive story than its Super Nintendo predecessors. And that brings us to the voice acting. Save for only Mega Man 8, which I'm pretty sure was done intentionally bad as a prank.
Mega Man, today we finish this.
Hey, Zach! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Shut up! We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke.
Mega Man X4 probably has the worst voice acting in all of gamedom. The grunts and yells from X and Zero during gameplay is actually a great flourish, but everything in the cutscenes is a whole different matter.
I'll take care of this personally.
By yourself, Commander?
I don't want any more of my people being sacrificed.
Iris. Iris! Ah! No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
And yes, I loved this scene so much that I decided to make it part of my intro. Not that the bar was particularly high for video game voice acting in the 90s, but damn girl, that's stanky. Fortunately, Zero's voice actor for Maverick Hunter X, Lucas Gilbertson, who to be clear, was not the original voice, redubbed a few of the scenes from X4 and made him sound a lot better.
This isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on! What am I fighting for?
I mean, it's not like the dub made it into any of the re-releases of the game or anything, but hey, at least the scenes don't suck so bad now. While Zero's original voice is bad, X's voice just doesn't sound right at all. X's voice actor, Ruth Marie Jarman, also voiced the titular character in Mega Man 8. Rumor is that she recorded her lines for both games in the same session, and she wasn't told that they'd be for separate characters. Thus, X's voice was recorded to sound like Little Boy Mega Man by mistake.
Dr. Light, how's it going? Will he be okay? What if I become one of the Mavericks?
Since we're talking about the game's issues, another one is the wild imbalance of difficulty. The stages are actually really easy, but the bosses can range from an absolute joke, like this giant walrus that you just have to gently hop over, to this freaking peacock that wipes out half your health with a standard attack. The boss fights are also not particularly well done this time around, as they only really have like 2 moves that they'll just keep spamming. They have even less attack variety than their SNES counterparts, which just seems lazy to me. After defeating all the Maverick bosses, you'll have to defeat Sigma, who of course was pulling the strings all along, using Magma Dragoon to destroy Sky Lagoon and pit the Repliforce and Maverick Hunters against each other. Sigma is waiting in the Repliforce's space station, which is also a giant laser. And also it's the utopian city that the Repliforce was trying to build to get away from the humans. X4's story is just sprinting towards the finish line at this point. We do get some great hastily made typos though. Repliforce has left for the space. The final stages are really short and it doesn't seem like much effort was put into them. You'll have to fight the Repliforce General, creatively named General. Colonel, General, did the writing staff for this one just give up? Did you guys go too deep down the animal-themed Maverick rabbit hole that you forgot how to name humanoid characters or something? And who thought it was a good idea to build the freaking Iron Giant over here anyways? This dude is massive. Why would a robot that large even be created in a world where like every other robot goes berserk? That's just asking for trouble. You'll eventually fight Sigma, which... what the f***? What is this design? Did they melt his face in the microwave? This is horrifying. The story kind of abruptly ends after that, with the General sacrificing his body to destroy the giant laser so Sigma can't use it to attack Earth. The end credits start rolling here, and even the text wants to wrap this shit up as fast as possible. I'm not fast-forwarding this clip, the credits really do scroll this fast. The battle has ended, but for some reason, Zero's memories of the past continue to haunt his mind. As a hunter, it is his duty to go after those Mavericks, and at the same time, he knows that it is his destiny to defeat his friend one day. Two different people, two different fates. In the future, Zero's decision will lead to great hunters Anyways, that's Mega Man X4. The game is a bit linear, especially for Zero as he doesn't get any upgrades or parts to find. Some of the bosses are way too difficult or way too easy, and the voice acting is a war crime.
My fate is sealed. I have no choice.
Hey, watch it!
I'm terribly sorry.
What a freak. You want some? Huh? Then keep your mouth shut.
Oh, get wrecked, idiot. Bro, savage.
But the graphics are a huge leap up from the Super Nintendo. Being able to play as Zero is awesome, and the world of this game is a lot more creative and fun than the previous two games. I know I've been hard on this one, but even its flaws are enjoyably bad, and never frustratingly bad, like in the later entries. Truthfully, this is probably my second favorite game in the series, behind the original Mega Man X.
X のパワーか、ゼロの技か。俺は一体何のために戦っているんだ。選べるヒーローは一人じゃない。ロックマン X4 好評発売中。カプコン